So good morning, folks. And this morning we have got on the Soul Man Surgery a very inspirational man indeed, in the form of Barry Collins. And Barry is a master firewalk instructor, amongst other things, because he does lots of other things as well. So today's surgery, I am absolutely sure, is going to be really exciting, really fun. And you guys always remember that you can ask as many questions as you like. So, without further ado, I am going to bring Barry on. So, welcome, Barry.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's great to meet you as well, because obviously I've not properly met you as well. So, 1 wee second, just going to take that logo off your head. There you go. I've not properly met you. I've only had a discussion with you, but obviously we share a mutual friend as well, Susan. So she was saying how inspiring your work is and how inspiring you and Marina are as a couple. So yeah. So we have got some questions for you, Barry.
Excellent.
And these are icebreaker questions, and our audience that are watching, they may ask questions as well. So if they ask any questions, I'll share that with you as well.
Perfect.
First question is, when was the first time that you ever done a firewalk?
Strange enough, it was actually about 6 years ago and 4 days. So it was 2015, and we'd the whole backstory was we'd been moving. My wife and I had been moving within the sort of personal development field for about 7 or 8 years, and so you get to know people, and you hear about lots of different things, different approaches, different disciplines, and firewalking was one of those things that had kind of come up, and we were like, oh yeah, that's on the bucket list. We'd like to do that one day. And we had a friend who was doing a lot of fundraising for Help for Heroes, and it was part of a massive campaign. I think it was like $6.5 grand or something she had to raise, and so she was doing the party nights and the pub quizzes and raffle, doing all of that. And we said, look, let us organize a firewalk for you. We'll get somebody in to run the event, and we'll get people to raise sponsorship. And so we got it all organized, and we thought, it's the same as a bungee jump, a skydive, abseil, all these sort of adrenaline fueled things. But we were blown away because the time that we spent in preparation, we got so much out of it that when it actually came to do the firewalk, which in and of itself was incredible, but the preparation, the getting ready to do the firewalk was a real eye opener. And so the next morning we both woke up and it's like, wow, how do we get more of that in our life? And my wife, she's like a pushy mom in some respect, or a pushy wife to me. She said, oh, you should go and train. You should go and learn to do that. And so I spoke to the guy, and he said, I'm going to give you a phone number. You ask for Steve and you tell him I sent you. And 6 weeks later, I began the training to become a firewalking instructor.
Fantastic. What a journey. That's a great story. I love that. And have you ever been burned?
Well, so we tend not to talk about getting burned. So we'll talk about fire kisses. Sometimes we'll call them trophies. Yeah. We used to call them trophies. And the way that we frame it, whenever we do a firewalk and we're presenting it to people, because everything we do on the night or the day or the week or, however long the event is, everything that we do is voluntary because it's all about personal empowerment. And so being coerced or bullied into something isn't personal empowerment. Personal empowerment is making a decision that's right for you in that moment. Now, it might be that, 10 minutes later, you might change your mind, but in that moment, making the decision that's right for you. And so everything that we do is voluntary, and we explain the risks. Is there a risk that you may get a fire kiss or a small blister? Yes, absolutely. But, the same as a skydive or a bungee jump or any of these activities, you're given a very specific set of instructions. Mm-hmm. If you follow those instructions, you'll in turn get the experience that is intended for you. With any of these things, some people will make the decision not to follow the instructions and they will still get an experience, I can guarantee it, but not necessarily the one that we intended for them. So is it possible to get burnt? Yes. Have I had a couple of fire kisses? Sure, absolutely. I've done a little over 400 firewalks now. And, in that time, if you're not in the right state, if your focus isn't where it should be, if you don't approach it in the right way, is it possible to get a fire kiss? Yeah, absolutely. Have I had anything serious? No. Nothing worse than the sort of thing you might get from wearing a new pair of shoes a little bit longer than you probably should have, gone dancing on a Saturday night. That's the sort of thing they were talking about. Is it possible? Yes. Is it worth the risk? Absolutely, in my opinion.
So what do you think, Barry, draws people to want to walk on fire?
So
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's one of those big things that people do.
that there's a very broad answer to that, which, and it depends on the individual, because some people are drawn, as I said, there's the adrenaline junkies. The people who have done the skydive and the abseil, and they've done those sort of things, and they're looking for the next, what's the next buzz? What's the next thing I can jump into? And they'll tend to turn up on a lot of our charity events. And they turn up thinking it's just going to be like any of these other things. And so they get surprised because it's about so much more. But other people are drawn to it because, there's something... if you think about fire, it goes back hundreds of thousands of years. It's a core element that people are drawn to. If you look at the nature of tribe, they would gather around the fire. It was a place to come together, to feel connected with your community, whether that was 2 or 3 people or 200 or 300 people. They would come together around the fire to come, to be as one, to share stories, to celebrate, to connect. And so there's that thing about the fire that it's the great leveler. It doesn't matter whether you're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar industry or the janitor. When you're stood there looking at 15 foot of glowing red embers, you're all the same.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned there, Barry, about it being, fire being something that people would gather around, and my knowledge and my experience of fire walking is very much that it is, it's a real ceremonial thing. It's a really life-changing experience, I think. So what's your view on that? Do you feel that it really changes people going through that ceremony?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I train at firewalking instructors as well, and there are a number of places that train firewalking instructors, and the way that we deliver our training is, I'm a firm believer that for every firewalking instructor, there is a different way of presenting the fire. And the reality is that if you're inviting someone to kick off their shoes and walk across this 1,000+ degrees fire, they need to trust you. You need to have a connection with that person so that they feel safe with you. And the easiest way to do that is to be authentic. And so I can't do anyone else's presentation in preparation for the firewalk. I can only do Barry's, setup. And that comes from the heart. And that, for me, is the only way that I know how to do it. I do what's right in that moment for the group of people that are in front of me. But there are many styles. If you're aware of Tony Robbins, so there's the 14,000 people, high energy, 16 hours straight through. And then on day 3 of 5 days, he'll take 14,000 people across the coals. And then there's the small ceremonial, very spiritual experiences where there's maybe no spectators permitted at all. And you might only have 3 or 4. I've done firewalks for 2 people in a very different setting to, the high energy, big groups, fundraisers, corporate. So there's all these different ways of approaching it. But no matter what, I'll mention the name Tolly Burkan. I think you might be familiar with who Tolly is. Not everybody is, but I'll give a brief explanation. Tolly was the founding father of the modern firewalking movement. Back in the late 70s, he was aware of firewalking. His background was in magician and vaudeville. He thought it was some sort of gimmick. He discovered that it wasn't. And in a moment, his life was transformed because he did a firewalk and realized the tremendous potential for personal development, for letting go of those beliefs that hold you back. He became so popular, in such demand, people like Microsoft, Remax, American Express, Coca-Cola, they all wanted Tolly Burkan to deliver the firewalks. And Tolly is, recognized as kind of the founding father. I know that you're familiar with Peggy Dillon, who is Tolly's former wife, who's very much considered the spiritual mother of the modern firewalking movement. But the reason I mentioned Tolley is one of the things he says about the firewalk is that it's such an indelible experience that it doesn't matter, how it's presented or who the person presenting it is or what they say to you. That if you do the firewalk, if you walk across that bed of red hot coals, it's not what you learn, it's who you become. And it's that moment that you've had an experience that you can't think, oh, well, maybe it was just luck, or, well, yeah, but maybe it wasn't really that hot. It's, it's such an out there experience that you can't do anything but be changed by it.
Yeah, we've been speaking a lot about this week, and that is the intimate connection between the mind and the body. And you'll know this anyway, but the firewalk itself, it's less about actually what the body's doing, and it's more about what the mind's doing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. People say to me, if they phone me and they want to book a firewalk for a charity event or corporate event, I always say to them, look, I have to tell you something. This might be a bit of a shock, but firewalking is not about walking on fire. It's about so much more. The physical part is this much. What's going on up here is this much. This is where the challenges come up. This is when you're stood looking at those glowing red embers. It's what's going on up here that will hold you back. And it's being able to make that decision to step through that membrane of fear and take the first step. And it's a mental game.
Yeah, it really is. I've participated in a couple. Sorry, dog's barking at the postie. I've participated in a couple of firewalking events, and they really are just life changing. They're transformational. And I thought that the second time that I'd done it, that I'd be like, do you know what? I've done it once, and it's going to be really easy this time. Second time round, it was just the same as the first. It was just as hard to, bring myself to that place mentally where I could do it. So do you find that people have done, multiple firewalks and find that each time they do it, it's a different experience for them?
Yeah, absolutely. As you come to the fire, it's what you bring to the fire will determine the experience you have. And that's why such a large part of it is the mental game. If you turn up to the fire thinking, oh God, I'm going to get burnt and this is so hot and I don't know, I don't think I can do this. And you have all that stuff going on, guess what experience you're going to get? You're probably going to have, a negative experience. You might get a fire kiss. You might have to get off halfway across the fire. If you turn up thinking this is, this is going to cleanse me. I've also heard it said, and I love this one, is the fire cannot burn you. It can only burn what you are not. And so it's that way of leaving behind all those things that are just, a veil of mystery, a veil of hiding, and revealing who you truly are, letting your light shine.
That's great. I love that. I love that, the saying that you've just said there about the fire only burn what you're not.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. Do you know as well, Barry, what I was really, really fascinated to see was the preparation that goes into a firewalk, because the first time that I went along, I was like, they're just going to light a fire and you're going to just stand on it and walk across it. And there was so much more to it. So the preparation part of it, that's a huge big part for you guys, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's two parts to it. There's the practical stuff. So if we are doing an event somewhere else, at someone else's venue, we go to great lengths to ensure, on a very practical level, that we're not leaving any indication that we've ever been there. So there's a lot of protection goes in, because these fires, the core of the fire, when it hits its peak, it can be 2,200 degrees at the core of the fire. So we need to protect people's property against that. But there's also a large part in as you mentioned, the ceremony of the fire. So there's a lot of preparation goes into that aspect of it. When the fire is built, it's built with an intention. Saturday was International Firewalk Day, Unfortunately, this year, because of the circumstances under which we're living, we weren't able to have as many firewalks happening. But normally they happen across the planet on International Firewalk Day, maybe into the hundreds. And each fire is built with intention, built with purpose. Now, one of my partners, Steve Consalvis at Firewalking UK, is a video on the Facebook page where he built the fire with intention. It's done in time lapse because I think it took him about an hour, but each log had somebody's name, somebody that was important, somebody that had requested an intention to be set for them, so perhaps someone who needed healing, and their name was put into the log, and each log ceremonially placed into its position in the fire. So it's not just a dump some coals and hope it all works out. Each fire is built with intention, with ceremony, with purpose before being lit.
I really love that, the sentiment behind that, like a person's name on each log and placed perfectly. That's phenomenal. I love that. Yeah.
And with any of the firewalks, one of the things that again is across the firewalking community globally, that we always set the intention for any firewalk is clear skies, gentle breezes, and ice cold fires. Clear skies, gentle breezes, and ice cold fires. And everybody, and there's online communities, private groups of firewalking instructors and firewalking masters. And whenever somebody has an event, the intentions are set for clear skies, gentle breezes, ice cold fires. And very, very rarely does it rain on a firewalk. I mean, I have built fires in near torrential conditions. Hail, sleet, snow. I've finished building the fire. I'm soaked to the skin. Our tenders, when we light the fire and they're looking after the fire, they get soaked, and one side the steam's coming off them because they're so hot when they're near to the fire and their back is soaking wet. And then when it comes time to walk, the rain just stops.
That's phenomenal.
Clouds open and people come out, they walk, we go back inside and the rain comes down again. So
do you think there's a bit of magic involved with firewalking then?
Well, if you want to look at this magic, and I think it was it Carl Sagan who said any sufficiently Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And if you're familiar with the work of Cleve Baxter. So Cleve Baxter was at the time, back in the 60s and 70s, the foremost expert on biofeedback machines, or lie detectors, as most people would know them. He was renowned within the field. He'd done work for all the big intelligence agencies across the globe. He wasn't affiliated to any particular one. His expertise was in the science. And so one day he was taking a break from a problem that he was struggling to get over, and he happened to be in the canteen, and he was looking at this plant in the canteen, and he thought, I wonder what would happen if I connected this up to a biofeedback machine. And so he got this plant, he took it back to the lab, hooked it up to the lie detector, and to his absolute amazement, nothing happened. And so he thought, I wonder what would happen if I took a blowtorch to it. And at that moment, the thing went nuts. Now, he hadn't taken the blowtorch to it, he just thought about doing it. Mm-hmm. He then did a little bit more, exploration and a bit more study on this, and it turned out that the plants were picking up on the intention. Mm-hmm. They followed this up with an experiment where they had 3 plants together, and the 2 on the outside were connected to biofeedback monitors. Somebody came in, took a blowtorch to the middle one, and the 2 on the outside went nuts. They then took everybody out of the room, and one by one, people walked in, they stood in front of the 3 plants, and walked out, one at a time, until the guy who had taken the blowtorch to the plant, when he came in and stood in front of the 3 plants, they went nuts again.
That's phenomenal. So, I heard that, yeah.
So Cleve Baxter, Cleve Backstr, Cleve Baxter. And he was discredited. He almost lost his career as a result of that, because he's the crazy guy that thinks that plants are talking to us. So he took a real beating. And if you can get hold of Primary Perception is the name of his publication. So it wasn't a book, it was his study. But if you can get hold of that, you're doing exceptionally well, because after he was ridiculed, he took it out of publication, and it now goes for several £100. if you are able to get a copy of this. But it's his study on how these things are all connected, how our intention creates a physical change. So, that's the science behind it. So is there a bit of magic? It depends on, how much you know about the science. So is there something that's connected that perhaps not everybody understands? Absolutely. The intention that you approach the fire with, the intention you put into building the fire, all of that will ultimately determine the experience that people have when they come to cross the fire.
That's phenomenal. Marina's just commented there saying it's £191 on Amazon.
There you go. So yeah, a couple £100.
A couple of £100. But an interesting read, I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, I say my colleague has a copy, which he's had for quite some time, and some of it is a bit hard going, it's a bit scientific, but yes, it is fascinating if you get into the sort of the story of it.
Yeah, I say this all the time, that everything that we do in life is always about intent. So it's if our intentions are good and honest and just, then that's how life will be. So another question I have for you is, can you walk on any kind of coal? Just, because there might be some silly people out there that decide, oh yeah, fire walking, let's throw some coal on the ground and walk over it. So
so I suppose the caveat around all of this is don't try it at home. First of all, we don't use coal. We use wood. So the fires that we prepare are prepared from specific types of wood, and different woods will behave differently. They'll give you different temperatures. They'll burn for longer times or shorter times. They'll give you a different type of coal at the end. So at the end, what you're looking for is a bed of these small coals, probably about the size of marbles, maybe slightly bigger, that don't crumble underfoot. If you use the wrong type of wood, you can only get one or two people across before you have to put more coals on, which means obviously ultimately you're going to be using a lot more wood, which means your cost for running an event goes up. So using the right type of wood, and obviously in spiritual practices as well, certain woods have certain connections to certain spiritual practices. So sometimes woods are used in connection with the belief system that goes around with them, as well as the practical application of, this type of wood is going to give you a coal that's going to be at this sort of temperature, it's going to last for this amount of time. So, I've seen firewalks done very poorly by other companies where they use the wrong type of wood, and every 3 or 4 people that go across, they're having to refresh the coals. Stop it, okay, let's get more coals. Right, 3 or 4 people, stop it, more coals. When we do a firewalk, we can easily take, probably 30 or 40 people across before we even have to consider refreshing the coals.
Mm-hmm. And when you're doing the firewalk itself, Barry, are you walking across first and then people follow you, or?
Oh, no, do you know how dangerous it is? That's the joke I use. If people ask me, "Oh, are you walking to?" God, no. Do you know how dangerous it is? But no, I always feel that I'm there to support my participants. When I did my training, the events that I go to as a participant, that's when it's my turn to walk. Part of the training that we go through, we do so many walks and have so many experiences of fire walking during the training and beyond, that it's out of my system in so much as I don't look at a fire and go, oh, that's a really nice fire, I'd really like to get across that one tonight. I'm there for my participants 100%. I'm there to serve them.
Yeah.
And in doing so, that's where I get my pleasure, my joy, is by seeing them have that life-changing experience. And for many, the first person across the coals when the fire is first open, sometimes that's a real honor, and I wouldn't want to take that away from someone. So for me, it's very much about being there to support, to encourage, to serve our participants.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just fire walking you do either, is it? You do other things as well, don't you?
Sure. So all of the exercises that we do, much like the fire walking is not about walking on fire, all of the other stuff that we do is simply, it's a metaphor as a way to share a lesson, to share a teaching, so that people can have an experiential learning. If I tell you about how you can do things that are beyond your expectation, and that your mind and body together and your will and determination can help you to achieve more than you think possible, you go, yeah, okay. But if I can give you an experience whereby you can experience what that feels like, something that is stuck up here. I'll tell you a little bit about the other things, but I'll share a story that kind of defines this for me. I was at a friend's birthday party. It was his 40th birthday, and I hadn't seen him for a few years. The last time I'd seen him was before I started doing all of this. And he says, "Oh yeah, you're doing the firewalking now, aren't you?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, my mum did a firewalk. Hold on, let me go and get her." So he brings his mum over, and if you've done a firewalk, you know that it's 4 or 5 seconds of your life. That's what it takes to walk from one end to the other. 4 or 5 seconds. And so she comes, "Oh, you did?" "Yeah, I did a firewalk." And she gives me this 7, 8, 9 minute account of the moment she walked up to the coals, looked at them, felt the heat, all of that, and walked over. So we're talking, it was maybe 15 seconds of her life. And she gave me this 7 or 8 minute account of, blow by blow, what it felt like, what she experienced, with emotions that came up, how she felt as she stepped on, all of these things. And I was like, wow, that sounds like you had a really incredible experience. Was that earlier this year? Was that last year? And she said, no, it was 20 years ago.
Wow.
20 years ago. And she could still remember at that level. So these teachings that we share, the metaphor that we use, and whether it's the fire or some of the other stuff that I'll talk about in a moment, it's simply a way of making that experience, that learning, something that you can't go, yeah, but maybe I just got, or yeah, it was nothing. No, if you've walked across 15 foot of glowing red embers at 1,000+ degrees, that stays with you. You won't remember me or the words that I used or, the things that we spoke about prior to that, but you will remember the fire. Yeah. But there's other stuff that we do, as you said, and some of it comes from sort of ceremonial practices that goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years. Some of the stuff that we'll do, we also do glass walking, which, if walking on fire is, barefoot across a bed of coals, then glass walking is about walking barefoot across a bed of broken glass. But unlike fire walking, with a fire walk, as soon as you step on, all you should be thinking about is getting off. That's as soon as you're on, you're thinking about getting off. Whereas a glass walk is almost the complete opposite. It's almost like a meditation, because what you're looking for when you glass walk is the feedback. You're considering each step. So before you put your weight onto your foot, you're testing until you find the right spot, and then you put your weight on, and you're taking feedback. You're paying attention to what that sensation feels like, and then you begin the process again. You start searching for where to put the next foot, and when you find that spot, and you put your weight down, you're taking the feedback. So it's almost like a meditation. In some martial arts, glass walking was used as a way of focusing the mind and encouraging that meditative state. We do other things. We do sometimes we'll do. Many people have heard of the trust fall. We call it falling into friends. Is another way of doing it. You've probably done it where you stand on the floor and you allow yourself to fall back, and then somebody will catch you before you fall. When we do a lot of these intensives where, we're maybe dealing with CEOs, people who have done a lot of personal development work or a lot of empowerment work before. And so we need to, do something that will take them beyond where their comfort, because it's only when you get beyond your comfort zone that those learnings can become valuable to you. And so we'll do something like the trust fall, but we'll do it from an elevated platform. It might only be 3 or 4 feet high, but that then means that your head is now, 9 or 10 feet high, or for me, about 8 or 9 feet. But, it puts you in that elevated position. It's a very different experience. We'll do things like board breaking. If you've seen a lot of it's commonly used in a martial arts exercise, but also used in the empowerment field, where you are literally taking a wooden board and you're breaking through that board with your bare hand. Now, all of these exercises, is there some degree of risk with them? Yes, absolutely. But it's managed risk, and that's what we teach when we do the instructor training. There's 2 parts to it. We teach people the facilitation. This is the practical stuff that no matter what style you overlay it with, this is the stuff you need to do. Think of it as this is the house. And then each individual presenter can decorate that house in their own way. as long as their walls and their roof and their floor are solid and sturdy. And so they can present it in whatever style fits their personality, their belief system, and their audience.
That's amazing. Going back to glass walking, Barry, because you've got me thinking now about glass walking.
Yep.
I have never done a glass walk before. I've walked close by. I think glass walking terrifies me more than fire walking ever would. And do you find that people are more scared to walk on glass than they are to walk on fire?
In some instances, yes. There's other things that we do as well. Sometimes we'll do an arrow break. Have you seen or heard of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with it, just humour me. Take your index finger and find your supranational notch. That's the soft spot just above your collarbone at the base of your throat. You'll know it's the right spot because if you press, it feels like there's something stuck in your throat. And we would invite participants under managed conditions to place the steel tip of an arrow into that soft spot at the base of the throat, and the other end goes against the wall. And then we invite them, when they're ready to commit 100%, with their sheer will and determination, to step forward and snap the arrow. So, sometimes we'll do these things as preparation for a firewalk, because we need to move people further and further out of their comfort zone until they look at this 15 foot of glowing red embers and go, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, firewalking, is kind of the finale. We'll glass walking, arrow breaking, board breaking, trust falls, all these things we will do as kind of a lead up in some instances. And sometimes, people will, no problem, firewalk, done. The glass walk, I've seen people who have stood looking at the glass silently, just tears streaming down their face. And we find out afterwards it's because a 6-year-old, they were pushed through a plate glass window. Mm-hmm. And they've had an overwhelming phobic response to broken glass for their entire life. And they tell us this, thankfully they tell us afterwards, but we find these things out afterwards. And for them, that's a tremendous breakthrough, that they can overcome something that up until that point had controlled their life. And now they're back in control.
I think that's definitely what happened to me when I was little. I stood in a broken glass bottle, and it's just, in my mind, I'm thinking, I couldn't do that. But I know I can. I know I would be able to, but it's funny what the mind tries to tell us, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, there's the reticular activating system, which is the part of the brain. Sometimes it's like the thinker and the prover. Mm-hmm. And it determines the experience you have based on what you think. And this is why it's so important about how you talk to yourself. Enough people are going to, fill your head with nonsense and doubt and uncertainty. You don't need to add to it. So the reticular activating system is like the thinker and the prover. And whatever you think, whatever the thinker thinks, the prover proves. If you think of it this way. Okay, on the count of 3, I'm going to give you a very simple instruction. Okay. And I want you just to follow that instruction. So on the count of 3, I'm going to count to 3 and then give you an instruction. 1, 2, 3. Don't think of a blue tree. Now, you thought of a blue tree. You had to.
Yeah.
You might have thought about a blue tree so you knew what to not think about, but even to do that, you had to think about the blue tree. So because your unconscious doesn't process negatives, it had to think about the blue tree before it could know what not to think about. So when we take that to the larger part of our life, if we start thinking about what people want in life, I don't want to get burnt on the fire. I don't want to cut myself in the glass wall. I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to have another rubbish relationship. I don't want to be stuck in a dead-end job. All of these things, where is your focus going? Stuck in the dead-end job, another rubbish relationship, I want in debt. That's where the focus is going. So not being in debt is very different to having financial freedom. Having a good relationship is very different to being stuck in a dead-end relationship. So how we talk to ourselves, we might think it's the same thing, but our unconscious kind of looks at it and goes, oh yeah, I can do that. if you, I'm guessing you're not old enough, but those people of my age will remember the shows where you used to send in your camcorder tapes and you'd get paid £200. And if you haven't seen
I'm older than you think.
if you haven't seen the one I'm about to describe, you will have seen a version of it. And there's a guy at the top of the hill on his skis, and there's this vast expanse of white, crisp snow. And a mile down the slope, there's this one tree. And immediately, you know what's going to happen. So he sets off, and he starts to veer off to one side to avoid the tree. And all of a sudden, he begins to swing back. And so he veers off to the other side to avoid the tree. And right enough, at the mile marker, he hits the tree, because all he's focusing on is not hitting the tree.
Yeah.
So where we focus will determine the experience we have, which is why we spend so much time. It's not just turn up, get your shoes off, there's the coals, let's hope it all works out. We spend a lot of time helping people to get into the right mindset, get into the right state as opposed to a right state, so that when they approach the coals, they can have the best experience that they can.
Yeah, that was definitely my experience when I'd first done a fire walk. It was, I expected to turn up 30 minutes later, have my shoes off and be walking across the fire. And actually it was, I'm thinking, why have we to be there for 9 a.m.? And the fire walk wasn't until like 7 at night,
Yeah.
And it was great. It was an absolutely phenomenal experience. And I think one that I will always remember for the rest of my life, that very first time walking across the fire. And Sharon's saying there as well, she's saying that she agrees with the last story about your friend's mum. And she always speaks very highly about her fire walking experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely loved the whole thing.
Because it's such an indelible experience. And, Sharon probably knows as well, she probably doesn't remember much about the lead up to it. She'll remember snippets. She might even remember the person's name that helped present. She might remember those lots of, but the actual experience will stay with you a lifetime.
Mm-hmm. She's also saying there about the arrow. That arrow break was the hardest thing for me.
Yeah.
I felt elated.
Yeah. And, the great thing about all these experiences, and this is why we use these types of exercises, is because it strips away the who I'd like to be, and it shows who you are. We have a belief that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Particularly what brings that out is those moments of stress, or when you're challenged. Challenge will bring out who you are. And I've seen people with the arrow break. So they get the arrow and they're there, and then they do a bit of this. They try to lean around it. And what shows up for them is that they realize that when challenge shows up for them in life, they try to avoid it. Mm-hmm. They try to sidestep it. I had a lady who was on a fire walk, and she'd done the whole preparation. She'd spent a few hours with us, and all night we talk about when you're fire walking, you need to be walking with purpose, you need to be walking with intention. So when you get on the coals, you're walking, this is the pace you're walking at, you focus on. And so we talk about this all night. She gets up, she's the first person at the head of the line, she's going to be the first person at walking, and she steps out at this pace. And of course she has to step off halfway across. I'm thinking about the other 35 people that have just seen her get halfway across and have to step off. So I'm managing that, and I've got one of my team managing her. And so she steps to the side, and one of my team looks after her, help her get herself together. I get everybody else across, and then I go to her and I go, okay, so look, what happened there? Oh yeah, well I don't know. I said, well, did you follow the instructions that I gave you? Well, I think, did you walk at the pace that I asked you to walk at, that I've been instructing you all evening to walk? Well, no, I guess not. There was a moment where she went, oh my God, this is what I do. I get expert advice from people who are experts in their field, and then do my own thing and wonder why I don't get the same results. Mm-hmm. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And so she came back, she followed the instructions, and she walked across the way she'd been instructed to, and had a totally different experience. She'd got the teaching, and that's what it was really about. So for her, now when she engages with an expert and says, what do I need to do to get these results? When they give her that advice, she knows that if she doesn't take it, she's not going to get those results if she chooses to do her own thing. Or she can follow their instructions and get the results that she's asked for.
Yeah. Amazing. I love it. You know, I could speak to you all day about firewalking. I really could. The, the thing that I really wanted to ask as well today is, you know, obviously we've just been through the most life-changing year for many people. And what would you say you've had to do differently to adapt your business during the pandemic, Barry?
Wow. So a large part of what we do is based around bringing groups of people together.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of been not on the cards for the last year. So it's been very much about looking at, how can we still engage with people? How can we still connect and support people through the additional challenges? Because the reality is, no matter what's going on in the world, people will have challenge in their lives, and it's that opportunity to learn how you show up when that challenge shows up for you. But over the last 12, 14 months, that's been even more so. And one of the things that people were able to do that they haven't been able to do over the last period is come together to support each other. So whilst we can do Zooms and we can do online stuff, it's not the same as coming together. It's not that gathering around the fire with your community to connect, to support as a tribe. Mm-hmm. And so we've had to find ways to maintain that connection with the people that we already, are part of our extended family, the fire family, but also those people that want to connect with us. And so there's been stuff that we've been doing. We've been doing some online programs. One that we're currently doing, which is the Awakened Mind program, is about helping people through this time to re-engage with their better selves. Because it's very easy, over the last 12, 14 months, just to, get on the couch, pull the blanket up, put the Netflix on, open the cookies, and suddenly find 3 months have gone by. So it's giving people the opportunity now, as we see some light at the end of the tunnel, to go, okay, whatever's happened over the last 12 or 14 months, whether I've bounded through it full of the joys of life, or it's been a real toil and struggle to get to where I am today, there's always a way back.
Yeah.
There's always a way back to your best self. But, it's one of my colleagues says it's much like when you do whitewater rafting. The core instruction that they give you is, if you come out the boat, you need to be an active participant in your own rescue. Mm-hmm. You need to be an active participant in your own rescue. And so by taking these steps, whether it's through the Awakened Mind program, whether it's just going, you know what, I'm done with Netflix, I'm done with sitting on the couch in a blanket, whatever it is, you need to make the decision that you want to make the change, and then take steps. Now, it might be you don't know what those steps are or how to take the first step. And that's where, people like me, people like you, can give people that support, that guidance, that when they go, right, I need help. I need someone to show me the first step, to support me, to cheer me on from the sidelines, whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we've been looking at doing, is giving people the opportunity, the tools to support themselves, because we haven't been able to have that same level of connection to support them through these times.
I love that. I love that you've used the mind aspect of your business. The part that is probably the 80% part of your business. That's the part that you're using to help people.
Yeah. And it has to be, because we can't do not in the same way. We can't do the physical stuff that we would normally do, and so we've had to share those teachings in a different way. And I think at this time, more than ever, people are needing those teachings, needing those lessons, needing that support. And so we've duty bound to find a way to share them.
Yeah. So are you absolutely desperate to get a fire on the go?
Absolutely, yes. We were very fortunate, because the Firewalking Academy, where we do instructor trainings, is based down in Cambridgeshire. So although I'm up here in Scotland, the academy is down in Cambridgeshire. And last autumn, sort of September, October, the restrictions down there were a little bit easier, and so we were able to run a couple of instructor trainings. We had to, significantly change the way that we delivered them, but we were still able to deliver them. then obviously the tighter restrictions came in and we just haven't been able to do anything. Now, with light at the end of the tunnel, my phone's getting a lot busier, my email's pinging a lot more with people going, okay, fundraisers, corporate, people, wanting to come on the instructor training, who, people who want to learn more, because we do fire arts and stuff as well. So, the fire eating, fire breathing, poi, we teach all those sort of things. So people are, yeah, we're very fortunate. We're connected with a lot of people, and one of the things that through Firewalking UK that we do is we recognise experts, and what we always want to do is to deliver the best possible training. If that's not from us individually, so myself or Steve Consalves, if it's somebody who is better than us, we'll get them in. So I noticed something on your page about breath work. I know you've got some Wim Hof stuff on there. Are you familiar with Dan Brule? Have you heard of Dan Brule?
No.
No? Okay. So Dan Brule is the world's #1 breath worker. He's good friends with Wim. He's Tony Robbins' personal breathwork coach. And once a year, he comes to the Firewalking Academy and he does a 5-day training for us because he's the best at what he does. When Leonard Dorr sadly passed away a couple of years ago, Dan kind of stepped up and he's now the world's #1. When we do the Fire Dragon, which is the fire arts training, we have a guy called Shade Flamewater. You heard of him?
Yeah, I have heard of him.
Oh, okay. You know Shade. Great. Okay. So Shade is the world's #1 fire eater. We also have Minnie Azure, who is his performance partner, who is one of the top, she's Canada's top fire breather and one of the top in the world. So we have them come to the Firewalking Academy to teach because they're the best at what they do. And that's what we want to provide for our participants. We want them to have the best possible training. So if you know Shade, go and look up Shade Flamewater on YouTube. It's mind-blowing. He devised the laws of physics. He's absolutely incredible. But, that's kind of who we are. We want to give people the very best experience. And if there's people who are the best in their field, we will bring them in to do it.
That's amazing. I'm so surprised I've never heard of Dan Brule.
Yep. Go and look him up. Incredible guy. And the thing, so you've probably heard of people like, or you might have heard of people like T. Harv Eker, Andy Harrington, Edwin Gaines.
Yeah.
If you've heard of any of these people, Dan Brule, Tony Robbins, what do all these people have in common? They all trained with Tolly Burkan. So they're all firewalking instructors trained by Tolly Burkan. Why did I mention this? Because I trained with Tolly Burkan. I'm one of Tolly's mastery training teams. So if you go to the Firewalking Centre website, which is the home of Tolly Burkan, you look at their masters list, you'll see I'm on there along with a handful of other people. And the way that we teach, so when we do the instructor training, which is the Firewalk instructor training, the FIT, we are very much, we honour our teachers. And so the teachings that we share are Tolly's teachings, and we deliver the training in the way that Tolly would deliver it. Tolly's now retired, unfortunately, but we still have a very close working connection with him. So yeah, the teachings we give are Tolly's teachings, and we're very honoured to be able to share those with our students.
That's wonderful that you're sharing such an intimate bond that you guys had with other people. Yeah, and are you very selective over who you work with as well? Because, I always think that, if I'm going to be working with people, I want people who are, empathetic, kind, caring people. You don't want people who are out there and just doing it for the sake of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very much, we'll work with someone if they have the right heart and spirit. And also, as I said, the best. One of the things about Shade, just as an example that stands out, is there are people who are very good at what they do. They can be absolute masters of what they do, but they couldn't teach it for tuppence. Yeah. And one of the things about Shade, and this is why we chose Shade as one of our lead instructor, is because not only is he excellent at what he does, but he is excellent at teaching it as well. And that when it comes to the teaching aspect, the two don't automatically go in hand. And that's what a lot of people overlook. Just because somebody's good at something doesn't mean they're good at teaching it. And so when we're working with people, we are very selective. They've got to have the right heart, the right spirit, and come from the same place as we do. And, to be about serving the people, when we're in flow. When we're delivering our events, it's about service to our participants, 100%.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that ethos. And the training itself, if anybody was thinking about becoming a fire instructor, it's a whole week, isn't it?
So it's 4 days. It's 4 very intense days. We start at 9 a.m. each morning. We run till approximately 10:30, 11 o'clock each night. We do break for lunch. We do break for dinner. But it's 4 full-on days, and it's experiential learning. So you're not just sat in a classroom listening to stuff. You're doing stuff, and it's fast action, one thing after another. And there's kind of 2 parts to it. So people will come on the course for one of 2 reasons. Some people will come not because they want to teach or instruct others. They just want to have the experience, the personal growth that they get from that level of intensity. And other people will come because they want to take these teachings and they want to share them with others. And so we will take people through the exercises as if you were a participant at one of our seminars. And the reason we do it this way is so that at the end of the training, you have at least one experience of how to deliver that exercise. Now, you might ultimately look at Barry's demonstration of the glass walk and go, well, I'm damn sure I'm not doing it that way. And that's fine, because the other part that we teach is the facilitation, the house. Barry's presentation is just the decor within the house. Mm-hmm. We'll also teach you how to build the walls. And that's the bit that here's the practical stuff that no matter what overlay you put over the top of it to make it your presentation, this is the technical stuff that you need to be doing behind the scenes, underneath, to make sure that it's the best experience. So we'll teach that. So that's kind of half of the training. The other half is that, we want our participants to have a fantastic experience. But if you're coming to us as an instructor to teach others, we want your participants to have an incredible experience as well. Mm-hmm. And the only way we can really do that, because 9 times out of 10, we'll never stand in front of your participants. The only way we can reach them is through you. Mm-hmm. And so what we would do is, over the time that you spend with us, the stuff that we will weave throughout the 4 days that is about bringing out the best in you so that you can be who you need to be to stand in front of those people and present the firewalk or the glass walk or the arrow break or, whatever other exercise it is.
That's phenomenal. I love that. I love the way that you guys train, like weaving through all of that knowledge and understanding and helping that person to be able to help other people. So, brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing that. And Marina's saying there as well in the comments that, Barry, it was you that took Sharon across her first walk.
Oh, okay.
So Sharon that was commenting, it was you.
There you go. So yeah, as I said, oh yeah, okay, yes, it was. Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, I'm glad I lived up to expectations, Sharon. Thank you.
That's amazing. So we've got 7 minutes left, folks. So if anybody has got any questions for Barry, now is your opportunity. And Barry, where would you see yourself in the next 5 years with regards to what you do?
Well, one of the things we love doing, and I particularly love is the instructor training. So I don't think I would ever come away from doing that. It's just so rewarding, being able to do that. And people from all walks of life, we've had Cambridge lawyers, Zen Buddhist masters, we've had celebrities, we've had royalty, we've had bus drivers, we've had coaches and therapists, beyond belief. It's such a diverse group of people who come to the instructor training, and all of them get so much from it. And it's hugely rewarding just to see them blossom, to grow, to become elevated through their own recognition of their own potential and their own ability. When they turn up, it's not that we hand them a bag of confidence and self-esteem. It's already there. We just help them to reveal it to themselves. So that is definitely something I would always continue to do. But being able to share these teachings and these lessons, with larger groups of people, I wouldn't want to go too large because you lose that connection. I like the smaller, intimate groups. Anything less than 100 people, I'm absolutely delighted to be able to spend time connecting with those people. I've done bigger groups as well. When corporates say, "Yeah, well, can you come and speak to 750 people?" Yeah, sure, we can do that. It's not the dream, but there's still a certain pleasure that comes from it, knowing that you're reaching that many people.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly in terms of 5 years from now, I'd hope to be still doing this. I'm involved with the Global Firewalking Association at the sort of the upper level, and that's been a labour of love over the last sort of 3 years, which is it's an association for the firewalking community. And now we've got some real important people within the firewalking community on board. So hopefully my involvement will grow. We've got Peggy Dillon that I mentioned earlier. We've got Rolf and Åsa Beckman from Sweden, who are some of Tolly's very early masters. We've got Kevin Axtell from the Firewalking Centre in the USA. So we've got some really important people within the firewalking community who are now involved in helping to shape that community and to bring firewalking to more of the public awareness. Because for many years firewalking was considered a sort of very spiritual, very mystical practice. And it was really only with Tolly's intervention in the 70s and 80s that it became more of a personal empowerment tool. So there's all of that stuff that's now being brought to a new generation. So I hope to be greatly involved in that.
And I'm absolutely sure you will be. The enthusiasm and the passion for what you do, Barry, it just oozes from you. I don't know if anybody else can feel it, but I'm sitting here feeling quite inspired by you. So Kelly's just jumped on there as well, and she's saying that she tuned in later this morning, but she's loved every minute of this surgery. It's fantastic what you do, Barry. Can feel your passion when you speak. It's awesome. If I am ever doing a firewalk, I would love to do it with you.
You'd be very welcome, Kelly. Just watch the website, watch the Facebook page. As soon as we're able to be doing them again, they'll be up there.
And I'll just pop those up as well because we have got, so there's Phoenix Firewalk, which is a Facebook page. So what is Phoenix Firewalk? Is that your company, Barry?
Yeah, sure. So Phoenix Firewalk was what my wife and I started back in 2015 here in Scotland. We do a lot of sort of charity and open events. And by open events, basically, it's an evening or a one-day event or sometimes a two-day event where you can just buy a ticket and you can come along, and get involved. We also do the charity events where charities will get in touch with us and say, we want to raise funds for our cause. Whether it's a kids soccer team or it's a cancer hospice or whatever the cause, they can get in touch with us and we can work with them to put on an event that is dedicated to fundraising for them. So yeah, that's what Phoenix Firewalk is.
That's amazing. So I want you all to fire across to Phoenix Firewalk, like the page, and you'll be able to see all of Barry's stuff and Marina's stuff as well, actually, because you both work together, don't you? Husband and wife super team. Yes. And then we also have got another one, which is Firewalking UK, which is on Facebook. And is that the training academy part of things?
Yeah, so I'm also a director with Firewalking UK, and the Firewalking UK is the Firewalking Academy. So it's a lot of the training stuff that we do. So when we get Dan Brulé over, the Fire Arts training experience, Fire Dragon, the Firewalk instructor training, a lot of the personal development courses, they're done through Firewalking UK, and also a lot of the corporate stuff as well. Although we do charity events, the UK is a massive market. Strange enough, the UK seems to be the only country that we've come across where firewalking is used as a fundraising event for charities. When we were at the International Firewalk Gathering a few years ago, and we were talking to people about it, and they all kind of went, "You use it for fundraising? Really? How does that work?" So it seems to be an alien concept outside of the UK. I don't know if we're just better fundraisers here, but yeah. So a lot of that is through Firewalking UK. In the next Firewalk instructor trainings, they're all on there as well. The Awakened Mind program you'll find through there, which is a monthly program, 28 days, 7 steps to reconnecting with your best self.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Barry. And a few more comments. People are now starting to wake up, which is great. Sharon saying there, thank you for talking today. It's lovely to see you again.
Thank you, Sharon.
She can't wait to do that one, the Santa Walk, I think it is, that she's
Oh
talking
yeah,
about.
the Santa Fire Walk. Yeah, we that's a Phoenix event. We do it normally sort of end of November, beginning of December. Obviously, last year that couldn't happen, but we do that one to support the Trussell Food Bank locally in Glenrothes. And we get I think we topped sort of 80 or 90 kilos of food the last time that we did it. And people can fundraise for their own charities as well. But we encourage everybody to get their Santa hats on and get into the festive spirit.
I love that you've got such a focus on helping charities as well, which is really nice because you've mentioned that quite a few times now. So it's lovely. Marina's threatening me with a bag of no, where is it? There it is. Marina's threatening me with a bag of glass.
Yeah, she does that. Yeah.
And Kelly's saying there, he really is. I love it when people are passionate about what they do. These are the types of people I love to work with or train with. It makes all the difference in the world, and it really does.
Yeah.
Who wants to train with someone that's well, here we go.
Yes.
You do what,
Yeah.
Barry, don't you? You're very passionate about what you do, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we in everything that we do, it's about giving 100%. And when we do the instructor training, one of the things we talk about is discovering what your own 100% feels like, because there's a lot of people who think they're giving it their all, and then when we create the right circumstances, they find they can give a little bit more. And once you know what 100% feels like, you can then make the choice to come back down to 60 or 70 or 80%, in normal life, or you can choose to continue giving 100%. So it's once you know what that feels like, it's easy to step back into it.
Absolutely. Elizabeth saying there, very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And if before we go, because that's us at an hour already. This is the fastest hour of the day, every single day. Before we go, please do let us know how much you've enjoyed today's surgery. Pop into the comments and let Barry know how much you've loved listening to him today. There's so many more questions that I would like to ask you. Would you like to come back on and do another surgery one day?
I'd be delighted to. Yes, absolutely. I was going to say that perhaps we should have a part 2.
Yeah, definitely part 2, because it's such a vast subject, especially the arrow part, because as Sharon said there earlier, the arrow part, I think that's the hardest thing I've ever done. When I done the arrow break, I looked at the head of the arrow and I thought, that's a real arrowhead. It's not just plastic.
No, we're very specific about it. Same as we are about our wood. Everything that we use that is going to be used as an element in our presentation with our clients, with our delegates, our participants. We're very specific about the requirements, because we need to know exactly how things are going to behave. So the equipment we use, the wood we use, the people we use. So our entire team that we use on these events are all in their own right firewalking instructors. So these aren't just hired hands that we use. Every one of them has gone through the instructor training, which is pretty intense.
That's amazing. And maybe one day we could arrange a wee fire walk with the Soul Man and Friends community as well.
Very open to that, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Barry, thank you so much for today. I have absolutely loved speaking to you. And I know that everybody else has loved having you on as well. And people keep commenting, but I can't jump to all their comments. So can't wait to try. Loads of comments there, so you can jump on and you can have a wee look at them after the broadcast. But please do keep sharing. Please share the love with Barry. Go on, like his Facebook page, which is Phoenix Firewalk.
Yep.
And also go on and like Firewalk in UK, because if they're all as inspirational as Barry, then I'm absolutely sure that you guys will be able to take little golden nuggets from the Facebook pages. So, Barry, that's us for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's been a pleasure. And tomorrow, for anybody who is interested in tomorrow's surgery, what day is this? It's Tuesday. So tomorrow we have got the very lovely Danielle, and she is from Luna Life and Wellbeing. And Danielle is going to be speaking about how COVID-19 has impacted her business and how she's had to adapt things. And Danielle's actually also running a fantastic free course as well for anybody who is interested in it. And we'll be able to give you all the details of that tomorrow. But yeah, thank you so much, Barry. And I will certainly speak to you later. And everybody else, have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Strong.